Episode 58 with Joy Walker on the 9 Point Start with a Dream podcast.
Welcome to 9 Point Started with a Dream podcast. Our goal is to showcase the stories of athletes and the community that supports them by being authentic about their journey. Here's your host, Jacoby Gillum.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jacoby Gillum, coming to you from a nice, hot Phoenix, Arizona. This episode, we have Joy Walker, or we're going to say Coach Joy Skywalker. And she just is like a very just chill and down to earth person, and you can just tell by her story that it's not about her. You know, that she started this journey of trying to figure out who she is, and now she wants to give back to athletes, kind of help them figure out who they are once the ball stops. And it was just a chill conversation with her, just about her journey through the thing that she battled, you know, from the lifestyle at home to trying to figure out life after basketball, through going through corporate America, to working so many jobs, just trying to figure out that next chapter. So, great episode here with her. You'll love her journey, you'll love her advice, and hopefully you really gain a lot of value from it. So let's get to it. So Joy, the question after everyone that comes on is, when you were younger as an athlete, what's one of your biggest dreams or goals you want to achieve?
Oh my goodness. I just had this dream, this vision of playing Division I basketball. That was all that I ever wanted to do. That's what I was obsessed with. That's what I worked towards day and at night. I would dream about it. I mean, I slept with the stuffed basketball. It was pretty bad, but it was really consuming, and it took up my thoughts and everything. I just had to play Division I basketball.
So for you, kind of, we all kind of have this D1 dream. That, like, D1 is like the epitome of what we want to achieve, you know, as a young athlete. So for you, why D1?
That was what I saw advertised. I came along at a time when Tennessee was just rocking and rolling, and that was the place to be. And I remember being in fifth grade, and my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Todd, I used to beat up all the boys I could at recess. And he said, Joy, you know, you're pretty good. Have you ever watched Tennessee women's basketball? And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And he said, well, they play this Sunday, you know, afternoon or evening, and you should check them out. And I remember my first time watching them play, because up until then I just watched the NBA, and I hadn't really taken the time to seek out or to find people who looked like me, you know, who were playing. And I remember after just watching them play, that really just sent me down this path. And like I said, I guess it was what I saw, so that was really, really what I had in the back of my mind. I have to play Division I basketball.
And what age was this again? Like, was it fifth grade, you said?
Yeah, fifth grade. Yep, fifth grade.
So as a fifth grader, you have a dream of, you know, D1, you know, Tennessee, you know, high profile basketball. How did you think, I'm going to achieve this dream?
Just by putting in work and just by staying in the gym. I definitely did not grow up in ideal circumstances. So on top of really wanting to play D1, basketball, I always saw it as my way out of St. Louis. I saw it and even when I was playing, it was almost like I heard another person talk about, you know, when we're practicing, we have in this built-in therapy session. Practice is like from 1 to 3 when you're in college, and I have this built-in, just this escape. And for me, basketball was a way to really just not only go to college and fulfill my dreams, but just to really get out of my current circumstances, which, like I said, were not ideal at all.
So kind of going on that. So I know for me, I was in the same boat, you know, like for me, sports was like my, it was like my getaway, in the sense of I had confidence because I knew I was better than most people when it came to my sport. So for you, circumstances that you kind of dealt with, was it almost as in when you're in that hour, it's just like the world was perfect?
Absolutely. It was, like I said, it was just my way of escape. It was my way to get away from reality, and a lot of the praise that a lot of kids might receive at home, I didn't get that. So I got it on the court. And when I was on the court, that's when I felt like I was special. And my coaches would pour into me. And I remember my teammates' parents talking about, oh, you know, you jump so high, or you do this, or you rebound well. My very first basketball camp, and it was my first time playing organized ball, so I didn't really know what I was doing, but I came away with a trophy that was chairman of the boards. I just had a natural knack for just going and rebounding and finding the ball and securing the ball and just getting my team extra possessions. And like I said, when I was on the court, that was where I got that praise that as kids, we longed for. People told me that I was special, that I had a bright future. And you can get addicted to that attention. And you don't really realize it as a kid. But now as an adult looking back, I'm able to see why I took basketball a lot of kids just play because it's fun, but from the time I started playing basketball was my job. That was my life. I took it serious, and I wanted to be on that court 24/7.
Hey, Kawhi Leonard said, "Bored man gets paid." That's awesome. I think a lot of kids I think it's so true what you said about the praise. We once you get it, just like you start, it's like the ego just like says, "Oh, more." So for you, like just knowing where you wanted to be, did the praise ultimately kind of give you that extra confidence to know that you're on the path to achieving that dream?
Absolutely, because the more I listened to my coaches and the more I got in the gym and the more I put in work, the better I got. And I definitely wasn't the best player on my first AAU team. And I just stayed in the gym. I kept getting better, and I was able to realize that, and it was, like I said, it was like a drug, and it really got worse to me because the better I got, the more attention I get from college coaches, and the more, and in classrooms you might have the teacher's pet, but I was like the coach's pet because I was going to go hard. I was going to do what coach asked me to do, and it just continued to grow and to grow and to grow, and like you said, it just kept feeding that ego that I had.
And so you say you didn't have the ideal home circumstances. So was your family supportive in this dream, or is it almost just like it was on you to go get it?
It was an interesting situation. My mom was a single mom, so she worked really, really hard, and she made as many games as she could, but she was a dancer. So she had no idea what to do with this daughter who wanted to play basketball. She never played a sport in her life. So she was definitely as supportive as she could be, but my dad wasn't around. And I was sort of thinking about this the other day, and it's so funny how we go through certain things, as teenagers or young adults, and we're just so locked in and focused that we don't really take the time to realize that our situation isn't normal. So I literally played 4 years of college basketball, won 2 championships, played D1, did all of that. And my mom had gotten sick at that point, but I played 4 years of college basketball and never had either one of my parents at a single game.
Wow.
That was just my situation. And I don't think that was the case for any of my teammates. I remember being playing for South Carolina State, and we would go up to Baltimore and down to Florida and all over the country. And I would see, my teammates' parents at every tournament and I'm like, how do they even do that? But I literally played, like I said, 4 years of college ball. I had senior night, all that stuff. Now my grandparents thankfully were able to come, but never had either one of my parents at a single game after 4 years of college ball.
And it
was definitely on me. The dream was definitely on me.
Hey, you made it happen.
Yeah, I had to. I had to get it done. I had to find a way.
And just kind of on the family part, what was it because they didn't understand your dream, and didn't know how to support it in a sense?
Well, like I said, my mom came to a lot of high school games, a lot of AAU tournaments. She had gotten really, really sick when I was in high school, so she physically couldn't come. But my dad and I just didn't really have a relationship at that point.
Hey, I know the feeling on that though. My dad was in my life and all. He just mom was at every game, but my dad would never show up. So I think for you, was it almost like I want to make this reality because I want them to know that, or want him to know that I did this without you type stuff?
I don't ever think it was I did it without you. I think it was, like I said, that was a place where I received praise. As kids, you can act like you're upset and all that other stuff, but you long for somebody to tell you, even if we don't want to admit it, you long for somebody to say, "Good job, Joy," or "I'm proud of you." And because I got that from my coaches, And I got that from my teammates, trainers, whoever. I just was addicted to playing basketball, to getting better. And like I said, when I was on that court, I didn't have to think about some of the stuff I had to deal with at home, like not having a relationship with my dad, or, my mom being really, really sick. I would literally get out of a game or practice, and my teammates would be checking their phones and seeing if Boo texted them or whatever. I was checking my phone to see if my mom was in intensive care, or if she was back in the nursing home, or if she was back in the hospital. So I just had a whole lot going on. And basketball, it was my escape. And when it was over, I think that's why it was so tough, because suddenly I had to deal with all of this stuff that I had never addressed up until that point in my life.
Before the game ended, like before you're done playing college, what was like your thought process on what would be your next step after the game is?
I really, really wanted to play overseas. I knew I wasn't going to play in the WNBA. I wanted to play overseas, but I had this I was an accounting major, so I had a really, really good accounting professor. And because I sort of knew I wanted to go pro, but I knew I wasn't going pro. But I had a really good accounting professor, and he happened to be a tax attorney and a CPA. And he really took me under his wing. I really enjoyed his classes, even though they were the hardest classes I ever took. But I sort of wanted to follow down his path, and I talked to him about law school and about getting my CPA license. So once I went through this dark stage of like not being able to find a job and all that good stuff. But once I was able to bounce back and get a job, I did create a vision for myself. I had this great 5-year plan where I was going to get my master's in accounting, get my CPA license, and become a tax attorney. But if you ask me today, I'm not a tax attorney and I don't have my CPA license. So you see how that turned out.
Hey, the numbers, man, like the numbers is rough. I had an accounting class, and I barely made it. It was it was a close call. So I get it for sure. So just going on, like for you from early age, the identity was Joy, the basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you start figuring out the other pieces of Joy? Did you always kind of know who you were?
I've talked about it before in some other interviews, and it was my freshman year of high school, and we were doing some warm-ups, just going back and forth down the court, and I literally on accident jumped up and grabbed the rim and pulled it down. And I was like, whoa, is this like not regulation? What happened? And from that day going forward, my coach called me Sky, and my last name is Walker, so it just kind of fit, Skywalker. And yeah, it was a pretty cool nickname. I actually got it tattooed on me, but that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. But I was just so used to being Skywalker. And like I said, I would literally eat, sleep, breathe basketball. I lived in the gym. And I never really took the time to get to know Joy. So once basketball was over, I definitely did not know who I was. I had no clue who I was. All I knew how to do was to put that ball in the basket. And if you asked me to do something else, I would look at you and I would just be stuck, because all I knew how to do was hoop. And that's all I wanted to do was play basketball.
And that's how everyone around you knew you. Right?
Yeah. I was especially like my grandparents, and were like, oh, this is Joy, our little basketball player. Like that was me. That's who I was. That's what I did.
And so I know from my own experience that there comes a point where you hit something that makes you have to figure out who the rest of you are. Like I was talking to this one interview with her name was Christy Papetti, and she's like a life design coach, talking about how she had a point where she had to really like figure out who she was, because they was like rock bottom in a sense. So for you, when did you hit a point where you're like, I have to figure out who I am outside of the game?
Talking about rock bottom. So in order to really, really avoid what I needed to face, I just ran like a chicken with their head cut off. So I graduated in December. And once I graduated, I was volunteering at this college as a coach, and I was working overnight at FedEx, and I was really, really busy. I was on the go 24/7. And then the following semester, I went to grad school. And when I was in grad school, I worked part-time. I had an internship. I was just on the go constantly. So my graduate program was only 1 year. So I was a year and a half out of undergrad at this point. could not find a job to save my life. Ended up having to move back into my grandparents' house. So I'm in the basement, on the couch. And that was the first time life forced me to hit the pause button, because I was just on the go, on the go, on the go, and not even being intentional, but just trying to fill my schedule just with any and everything. And I got to a point, like I said, I had my master's degree. I couldn't find a job. So I have all of this extra time now that I didn't know what to do with. And that is when I remember literally going and looking in the mirror and saying, okay, Joy, you are not a basketball player anymore. Who are you now? And I didn't have any answers, but that was the first time I just took the mask off and said, oh, okay, we gotta try to deal with this, because that basketball, playing pro, getting drafted, that's over. That's not gonna happen. So you gotta really, really figure out what's next.
And it hits you hard too, because you're ready for it sometimes. It comes like when you're like really like not ready for it.
Yeah.
And you're just left there, just like, it's almost like that sunken place where you're just like in the air, just floating, trying to grab something, but there's nothing around you.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
And so for you, when it came down to just saying, all right, it's time to figure out who I am, how did you go about figuring out those pieces?
I think I did it all wrong at first. I think that because of what we see in the media, or maybe what we're taught, maybe how we're conditioned, we think that who we are is tied to our title, what we do, our occupation. And for so long, I was a basketball player. So after that, I was like, okay, well, let me get serious about this CPA and taxes and everything. So I took the LSAT. I was working at an accounting firm, and it just wasn't it. So I literally hopped around from job to job to job. Every time I looked up, I had a new job. I was trying to find myself in different forms of work, and that just didn't work out. And I think that's what so many of us try to do. And we never really take the time to ask the really important question, and that's, why am I here? What is my story? What have I gone through? What experiences do I have? How can I package those together? What lane, what avenue do I need to go down? And how can I find a way to serve other people? Because I think if I would have maybe stayed in corporate and climbed that ladder and done some other things, I would have been miserable like I was when I was there. And I think that, like I said, so many of us try to just say, oh, we need to get a job. I need to do this. If I make this amount of money, I'll be happy. But until you really figure out why you were put on this earth, you're going to be searching and searching and searching, and everything that you come up with is going to be a substitute or a temporary fill, and it's not going to be that it's not going to really, really satisfy you in the way that you think it is.
Facts right there. It's almost just just like a Band-Aid for beneath stitches.
That's real. You need surgery, and you're trying to, oh, it's okay, I'm just going to slap a Band-Aid. No, that Band-Aid is not good enough.
I was the worst at that. Like I always thought, I can work through it. And
as athletes, that's how we're conditioned. We're conditioned to just keep working, just work hard, put some dirt on it, keep going, get back up and fight. But sometimes we need to sit in the film room and like turn the lights out and push play and push pause and rewind. And we can't just go. We need to study. We need to be a student of life the same way we were a student of the game.
Some injuries ice can't fix.
Oh, that's real. You can't put ice on everything.
They always try to, like, yeah, get some ice, and like,
yeah, okay, coach.
Yeah, that's fire. So for you, like right now, if I said Joy, if you had to describe yourself in like 5 words, what would you say?
5 words. Wow.
Or like 5 adjectives describing yourself.
I would say inspiring, caring. That's tough. And I think that it really all comes down to inspiring. For me, that's what's most important, and not in a like lofty type, but just in my everyday interactions. I want to leave people with something positive. I don't care if we talk for 30 seconds or if we talk for an hour. I am really, really at a point in my life where I can be more transparent. and being able to work with student athletes every day is incredible, because at 18, 19, 20, you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to figure things out. And if I can just pour into the next person, or maybe it's one of my friends, or whoever the case may be, when you get done talking to me, I want you to feel a little bit better about yourself and about your situation.
Love it. Be a light to somebody.
Absolutely.
I love that. So knowing that, like, you want to inspire, right? So when you kind of figured out your like who you were a little bit more, how did you say, I'm going to go about inspiring people if this is not just like through my work or through my title?
The first step for me was something I thought I wouldn't do until I was like 40 or 50 years old, was writing my first book. Okay. It was really sitting down and telling my story, telling the good, the bad, and the very ugly, not being ashamed, not holding back, and just telling my story, talking about falling. My mom tells this story over and over again. When I was a baby, like 8 or 9 months old is when it started. She would sit me down in front of the TV when she would, go wash dishes or something like that. And she would flip through the channels and try to find something for me to watch. And if she tried to flip past a basketball game, I would literally throw a fit. And I'm 8 or 9 months at this time, can't walk, can't talk, can't articulate my love for the game. But ever since then, I have just been drawn to it. So I started there, and I talked about, elementary school and AAU and high school and college, and just trying to figure out what's next. Because once I left corporate and got into coaching, I saw that the cycle repeats itself. And I went on Amazon and I ordered books and I read this and I read that, and I couldn't find anything that really, really spoke to me. And it hit me one Saturday afternoon. I'll never forget it. And I was like, wow, maybe nothing is really resonating with me, because I need to tell my story and people need to hear my story. And that is where the inspiration and really wanting to pour into other people, that's where it started for me.
So what's that book called?
It is The Sweet Spot: Finding Purpose in Life After Sports. And I talk about when I was playing, don't ask me why, my sweet spot was the left elbow. If you get me on the left elbow, and you give me a good look, coach knew it was going in, I knew it was going in, I would just run back down the court. Like, that was my spot. And we know, because we study our games, we know where we're good, we know what our weaknesses are, we know where our sweet spots are on the court, or whatever sport you play, where you can really, really stand out, what your event is or whatever. We have to take the time to find our sweet spot in life. So that's how the title sort of came about. And that's what the book is really, really all about. How can you take this amazing experience that you had and use it and really, really find purpose outside of basketball, football, track, or volleyball, or whatever sport you play?
I love that. The Sweet Spot. So it's on Amazon, you said? It
is. Yep.
All right. The Sweet Spot. So you were like, up Tim Duncan on the elbow.
I'm not a Tim Duncan fan. Let's go with Kevin Garnett. Let's go with KG.
Okay, KG. I respect that. A little bit more swagger to you. Yeah.
He got the swag. He got the mid-range game. I love myself some Kevin Garnett.
Okay, KG status. All right, I respect that. So now, you got this book, and you kind of gave yourself a clean slate now. You kind of put all your stories out there. So now you have to kind of live life now to kind of create new ones. So how did you go about this next phase of joy?
The next thing after the book was my podcast. I understand, and I'm a big reader, and I wish that everybody was a big reader, but I understand that everybody doesn't read. And I think, as you know, another great platform, another great medium is audio. And I think that it was so important for me to start a podcast and not just tell my story, but bring on incredible guests who have incredible stories, because so many athletes have similar struggles, whether it is bouncing back from injuries or not knowing who you are when it's over with, or just so many things that other people can really, really benefit from. Starting the podcast has been, and writing the book really stretched me, and it was a great experience, but starting the podcast has been the greatest thing I've done probably since I put a basketball down, honestly.
I can relate. Because it almost like allowed you to, it's almost like it's like allowing you to heal more.
Yes, every single interview, I tell my guests, they probably think I'm weird when we first get on the call. And I'm like, I'm fired up. It's like game day. Let's go. Are you ready? I'm ready.
Exactly, because I believe that storytelling is like healing. You know, it's almost
Absolutely.
it's almost like each call. It's almost like where either I'm the therapist or you're the therapist, and we're just talking about life and just how we bounce back through this thing, and how we're like, dang, I went through a lot and I overcame it. You know.
And I've joked with some of my friends or even on Twitter about I gave the podcast the wrong name. Like the name of the podcast should have been Sports Therapy, because that is literally what it is. Every conversation is therapeutic, and some of my guests, we'll talk afterwards and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I had forgotten about some of the stuff I overcame and some of the things I went through." But we walk through those stories, and then I even have therapy in my DMs. Like I need to go get certified or something, because so many people reach out like, "Oh man, this episode touched me and I was going through XYZ." But like you said, podcasting is therapeutic for sure, and I love it. I love it.
And it's so cool now that because like, what year did you start your podcast?
Last year, so it's been about a year. It was May 2018.
Okay, very cool. I think I started 9.1 in January. So and it's just so cool to see how, like, since 2018, how many more athletes are starting to share their voice.
Yeah.
You know, and we're all kind of, I think we're getting to a point where a lot of the athletes that are now in our age group are starting to say, I'm tired of not having the narrative told the right way.
Yeah, because there's only one story, we hear in the mass media, and that's everybody who quote unquote made it. I have air quotes around that, and some of the things that they deal with, but there are so many other stories that people can really, really relate to. And it's important to share everybody's story. Everybody's story is powerful.
Exactly. I'm a big believer that every athlete has a story that can inspire another athlete on their journey.
Yes.
And I think someone's going to hear your story and they're going to think, wow, my home life isn't the best either, but I heard Joy's story and she made it out. You know, Joy made it out. Now she was a coach. She wrote a book. Now she's interviewing other athletes. She's really inspiring others, and I can be that.
If I can do it, if I can come out of North St. Louis and, like you said, write a book and podcast and coach and do things I never ever dreamed were possible, if I can do it, trust me when I tell you, anybody can. Anybody. If you set your mind to it the same way you set your mind to playing college sports or getting that degree, you can do literally anything that you set your mind to if you focus on it and if you just put in the work and get it done.
It's the mindset.
Absolutely.
And I think it's so cool hearing your story, because it's like, in our culture, African Americans, all we see it ourselves as athletes, music. That's about it sometimes, right? And
That's it.
And I think the fact that you are sharing a light on how you're more than just what the mainstream labeled us as, is showing other young Black girls or other minority girls to say, hey, like, the label society puts on you, it didn't have to be your story. Yeah, I think that's awesome what you're doing.
Yeah, and I had a guest on my show who brought up some incredible points and talked about the fact that we don't see a lot of African American scientists or engineers or lawyers or doctors in the media. We literally see them with the ball in their hand or a microphone in their hand. And as kids coming up, we think that sports and music are literally the only way out. And we want to play on the team, so we never consider things like being the engineer who builds the arenas that they play in, or just there's so many other options, maybe working, in a front office for the NBA, or just we can literally do anything. And it is so important to share stories of the people who have made it, because like you said, that's not something that we see every day in our community.
And it's kind of funny because I was going through my phone the other day. I was going through like some old notes, and that was one of the reasons why I got the idea for 9 Point, because it was the summer of like 2017, and we're seeing on the news like all these like killings, on TV of African Americans, and I was like, there's probably so many kids out there that like just young like just like young Black boys thinking that's to me the story.
Mm.
And I was like, there's no platform showing African Americans, doing big things, especially that are more than athletes. Because all you see is you see BET, but that's kind of a one narrow street sometimes. You see VH1, that's almost a narrow street because they're showing just love and hip hop, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, but like
too
what's
much love and hip hop is not good for anyone.
Exactly, So it's like, what's the other narrative? So I'm so glad to have you on, just to sharing the narrative that is authentic and just relatable.
And that is so real. And I think of another reason why I think that the book and the podcast and everything started. I love Stephen A. Smith. I love ESPN. I love First Take. And a lot of times you'll hear him talking about, former players or current players who get into trouble. And he has this thing, stay off the weed, man, all that kind of stuff, whatever. And we hear, I remember, and you talk about, how we see the stories of African-American men being killed. And it seems like it's all we hear. And as much as I hate hearing those stories, I also hate hearing the stories of just athletes or former athletes who make it to, a big time program or make it to the NFL or something, and they just get in trouble. Or maybe a player who recently, retired or something, and they don't really understand what to do with this extra time they now have, or maybe they don't understand the magnitude of the opportunity that they have in front of them. And we don't really prepare athletes for anything outside of game day. Like, we give them these scouting reports, and I can say that as a coach, we give them these scouting reports, we give them an itinerary, and we literally dictate their schedule, for 4 years straight, while their classmates are preparing to be young professionals, preparing to be accountants, preparing to be engineers. Whereas athletes, we just focus on the sport so much. And a lot of times when they get into trouble, we criticize them, we talk about them, but we never adequately prepare athletes for the day that their sport comes to an end. And that's just another reason why I was like, I got to get this book out. I got to get this podcast out because, like you said, people need to hear those stories.
And that's so true, because I quit track my junior year for internship because I realized, you know what, I'm not going pro. I just lost the conference last year by like a whole second in 100, and that's a long time. So I was like, let me go ahead and just hang it up. But I think too, it comes down to just the media doesn't want to show athletes doing more because it, because like think about like the whole like the Stephen A. thing with the weed thing. I'm sure there are athletes that should not be doing that, but what about the athletes that are hosting camps, the athletes that are having community things in their hometown? ESPN, they aren't.
That's not popular, right?
They're not showing that because it doesn't sell. It's not. I consider them more fan driven.
Absolutely.
And I want to make. I want to be an athlete to become like, yo, we gotta have. Like, you gotta show athletes like you that are doing stuff in the community that are showing that, once the ball stops, doesn't mean your game stops. You can help people get their game. So for you, as you're going with it, with the podcast, with everything you're doing, how do you hope to advance what you're doing to expand community, whatever it may be?
And it might sound cliche, but I think that cliches are cliches for a reason. And I don't have the exact blueprint, and I can't tell you from step 1 through 10 how it's going to happen. But I want athletes to realize that, hey, you have more than just one gift. You can do more than just knock down threes and catch touchdown passes. You should not peak at 21 or 22 years old. I don't want you to be 35 years old talking about, oh, I made the all-conference team freshman year. Look at my championship ring. That's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad that you went hard. I'm glad that you won championships. But what are you doing now? Like, what championships are you winning in life? And I think it is so important to help athletes to redefine themselves and to help them to do more. And for a while, people have been thinking that, oh, it's about getting them jobs because, oh, they might have blank resumes. They might not have this or have that. Having a job is not the end all be all. We were not put on this earth to work and pay bills for 40 years and die. Like, I want you to be able to have an impact outside of your sport. How are you going to impact your community? How are you going to serve people? How are you going to use this amazing skill set that you gained as being a D1 athlete or playing pro or playing D2? Like, how do you take everything that you learned and package that together and look at your story and look at what you're passionate about And how do you find that same rush that you had on the field in life? That's what I really, really want to do. I want to help athletes to figure out what's next, figure out their purpose, because your sport, no matter how amazing it was, that wasn't really your purpose. And I hate to break it to you, that was your training ground. That is where you gain the skills that you need to thrive in life. So that's what I really want to do.
It gave you a platform.
Absolutely.
Now I love that too, because I love how you're saying all athletes. You know, it isn't just on the pro athletes. We can all do it as the D1, the D2, the JUCOs, the NAIA. We all have the ability to make a difference, no matter what the status was.
Absolutely.
So for you, okay. So you're big on. I love how you said earlier that your word was inspiring, and like I'm right now I'm like hyping now talking with you. I'm just like hyped. I want to just change the world somehow. I don't know, but you got me hyped over here, Joy. But
let's go.
But so this podcast of yours, is it where's it at? iTunes, Spotify?
It's on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you listen to the podcast, I got you. You got an iPhone, I got you. You got an Android, I got you. And listen on the web, I got you. I got you covered. Just type in Sets for Life and you will find it.
Y'all, and her intro's fire. Like we're on the call. I was like, dang, it's like, y'all, it's Coach Joy. I was like, oh snap, oh. I was like, she's bringing that heat right now.
I gotta try to, give you some nuggets and entertain you. You gotta wear a couple of different hats as a podcaster. So hey.
For sure. So two more questions for you. So if anyone listening right now that's an athlete, current, former, whatever it may be, what would be like a piece of advice that you would give that you're really passionate about?
I'm big on really taking the lessons that you learn, coaches' sayings, whatever practices you had, and applying those to life. And my thing right now is get in the film room. Like, yeah, we want to practice, we want to get to game day, but until you get in the film room and break things down, and I'm not talking about your game, I'm talking about your life. Like, I want you to just take the time to reflect. We as athletes, we're on the go. We're moving 100 miles per minute, but we don't take the time to pause. And you're never going to find your purpose or find your why if you are just constantly on the go, 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 go. If you're just constantly on social media seeing what other people are doing, you got to slow down, pause, reflect, and figure out what it is that you really, really want to do. So just take the time to pause and watch some film on yourself.
That pause is key.
Yeah.
And then last question for you. So social media, websites, what are your links? We can go check you out.
Yeah, on social, you can find me at Sets for Life 314. I got a rep St. Louis. I got the 314 at the end. The website is joywalker.com, and that is joy with an I. So that's JOI Walker.com. So that's where you can find me.
Joy, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Like, I can tell your heart's in it. It's like not you're not just saying stuff just to say it. You're like living. Like, like I want to achieve all this stuff. So props to you, and I can help anyway. Please let me know.
Well, thank you so much. And this podcast is powerful. I love that, like you said, it's not fan driven. It is athlete driven, because as athletes, we don't have that therapy. We don't have that safe place because we're supposed to be cocky and confident. But what you are doing here is amazing, and I love it.
Hey, it takes all of us coming together to really change the culture. So I'm glad to have you part of this.
Thank you, Jacoby. I appreciate it.
Yo, thanks for listening to this episode of the 9 Point Started With a Dream podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please comment, share, leave a review. We would love to hear your thoughts. You can find more athlete-driven content at 9point.com. Till the next episode, you're only one opportunity away. Peace.